Mr. Shrackoff?
Here.
Mr. Landuse?
Here.
Mr. D?
Here.
Ms. Christie?
Here.
Mr. Zutnick?
I'm here.
And Ms. Betchall.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk and sent to the Burnersville News Burnersville, the Courier News Somerville, and to all subscribers and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 13, 2016.
Stand for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a couple of minutes that we need to approve. So we'll start with November 3rd. So everyone had an opportunity to look at those?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I abstain. I wasn't here.
What they said.
But everybody else, Nick is just the only abstention? Good evening.
We have planning board matters tonight, right?
Yes, you.
Hi, Frank.
You look a little confused for a minute. You know all that, right, I think?
Okay, we have minutes from November 10th. Again,
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Oh.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any?
I abstain. I was not here.
Okay, minutes are approved. We do have a resolution that needs approval. Heronwood Farm. Has everyone had a chance to look at that as well?
Yes.
We need a motion.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
I wasn't planning on talking at all. Just leave it
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Shrackoff?
Aye.
Mr. Landuse?
Aye.
Mr. D?
Aye.
Ms. Christie?
Aye.
And Ms. Betchall.
Aye. Okay, we have, Paul, we have Lamington Road.
Yes, this application obviously has been before you for some time. They have just recently submitted the EIS and traffic report that was requested. Those are the only open items for completeness. So, in my opinion, the application can be deemed complete at this point. And as it relates to scheduling, it looks like realistically the first week in February is when they would get started.
Okay.
Just a quick process. Who views the EIS? Is it just with the engineer, or does that get in any way get kicked back to the EC for review and comment?
The EC is, they've requested it so they can look at it.
Okay.
And I think now that, because it'll be until February before we'll hear them, they have plenty of time to look at that, so they should have copies and review that, provide any comment they want. The board obviously gets to look at it as well, but the input.
So Trina, do you take care of transmitting that over to EC, or is that someone else's?
Usually I ask the applicant to,
Okay.
but depending on what it is and how big it is, if it's something that I scan here.
The EIS actually isn't all that long.
No, I'm saying whatever supporting documents they need to review.
Well, I think it's in the plan. That would be the.
Right,
EIS.
they have seen the plan.
Even if the board doesn't ultimately follow every recommendation of the EC, it's good for the record to get your recommendations, I think, because of the nature of the property, and I don't want to be specific, but you know, it's an important site for you to take a close look at.
Well, do they have a traffic study done as well?
need to submit that as well.
We don't have any of the paperwork yet.
We don't have access to that yet, right?
Not yet, they haven't submitted copies for the board use yet, they just submitted it for completeness. We'll have to get it in for all the board members, all the professionals. I would suggest that we send a traffic report to Chuck Live, have him look at it.
I would think so.
And you're the EC liaison? Can you just make sure that Jeff schedules this in time so that whenever February, that there's a review and comment back from the EC?
Absolutely.
Thank you, George.
Okay. So I guess we need a roll call on that? You're right, there was not.
The motion to deem
Yeah.
the application complete, and why don't we schedule it for February
Second.
February 2nd.
February 2nd.
Mhm.
And, we need an extension of time. No, we won't.
I've spoken to the attorney for the applicant, he agrees that it will go on the first week.
Oh, okay, good.
He's okay with that.
Okay, we need a motion to complete.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Treadwell?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mr. B?
Aye.
Ms. Christie? Aye. Mr. Zutman?
Aye.
And Ms. Gershon?
Aye. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the zoning ordinance modification. And Frank, I guess you are up on that one.
We, I believe, are talking about the modifications to the prior recommendation to the governing body, and I think you have copies, a track change and a clean version of what the additional language is. At the conclusion of the last planning board meeting, member subcommittee collected in the back room offered me suggestions that I included in this as what we thought were the ultimate intended recommendations of the subcommittee kind of in the first place. So there are my modifications. You see them in red on the first page of my memo, which is the definition of floor area we talked about. I meant to refer to the net habitable floor area instead of gross. And we changed the definition of net habitable floor area so that it also included unheated detached buildings, storage areas, in addition to some of the other exceptions that were included previously. I had initially excerpted the wrong SFC zone and corrected that to read instead of an SFC RD with the other standards. It was the SFC zone. That was a typo, kind of a correction. If you flip quickly through the pages of the ordinance recommendation, you see that in the R10 district, detached dwellings and agricultural uses was a modification that was added. Now only looking at the changes from the last version that you saw, I believe. The adjustment in the floor area ratio in the R10 district at 8%. The additional language regarding gross floor area, not only for single-family residential, but also for agricultural uses that would not include attics, detached storage buildings, and ag buildings. The amendment to the definition of floor area ratio, which swapped out gross or net habitable floor area. The definition for net habitable floor area also amended, as I said a minute ago, like it showed on the front page, so that service and storage areas, barns, stables, and unheated detached buildings were added to the categories of cellars, basements, attics, etc., to be excluded. Again, on the fourth page, page 4, section 3, the same reference, detached dwellings and agricultural uses. Side yard, 50 previously shown, 40 feet now. Accessory building minimum distance again, 40 feet. Page 5, the modifications to the lot coverage that's stratified by lot area.
Frank, a quick question. Your cover memo. Definition, the insert, the definition of floor area ratio was meant to refer to net habitable floor area instead of gross floor area, and the definition net habitable floor area was revised to include all attics, basement, service, storage areas, barn, stables, unheated attached buildings.
those things were already excluded, the attics.
I think it means it was
It was revised to exclude, not
Oh.
include.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Exclude.
That was,
Exclusion.
right, because I was wondering,
Yeah, but it is, he's right, it's include in the exclusion. I'm on the list of excluded.
Included in the exclusion.
included
Oh, there
in the
you go.
exclusion.
I'm trying to talk like a lawyer.
Bullseye.
You gotta,
Mission
you
accomplished.
gotta dress better than that.
Oh, it's a rough crowd.
It's one of those nights. Okay, well, I'll make sure that that's clear in what I send to
Should say
the governing body.
instead of include.
It's included, but it's included in the exclusion.
To include among the excluded category. Thanks, Tom. Anybody else? It's an easy night, you know, cheap shots are accepted. Gratefully accepted. As long as we get invited back, right? Okay,
But that doesn't matter about, that's just the memo, the text seems.
yeah, and I think, I'm belaboring this because I think we went through everything except the changes the last time, so, and I walked in and Tom said, I'm to step on your foot if you talk too long, so maybe I should let you tell me if there's a lot more I need to say than I've already said, and we can go from there.
Well, do we have any questions from the board? Are you all in understanding of our changes?
If you are ready, you would be a motion to refer this memo to the township committee for final inspection and adoption.
So is this change to the net habitable, supposed to help somebody to not require a variance? Is it?
You're basically right. If someone, like a barn or a basement, or was doing an addition that added that, and was, if you counted those, would bring them above the floor area ratio.
Right.
No.
And now it won't be.
Now what?
And
Now,
now
in
we'll.
addition to some other changes you made, they probably won't be.
For example, we've had a couple of applications in the R10 zone for residential properties where they would have to build an addition on their house on a crawl space, or not on a crawl space, on a slab. Because the basement counts into the floor area ratio, because it went back to the gross floor area. By changing it to net habitable, that goes away. And from every time the board has looked at that, you've said, well, what difference does it make? You can't, the basement.
You see it in most houses.
Right.
Especially 10 acres. Yeah.
And you like,
Right.
you like people to have barns and agricultural buildings.
Right.
The last couple of times we've come at this subject, I've tried to be uncharacteristically prompt in turning things around so that we could get it back to the governing body, and I know everybody asked me to do that, and I remembered to do that, but I think I've hit the new high when it comes to being prompt, because if you look at the corrected version, it actually reads to exclude all attics. And you know what I hate about this? This is the curse of track changes. Because if you go back and make a final out of anything but the last track change you ever put in, oh my God.
Yep,
So what I
yep.
did here, obviously,
It
was
is
I
there.
caught it and fixed it. So I think it's
It is here.
good to go the way it reads. Doesn't need a change.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion to approve.
Refer this memo to
Mhm.
the township committee for introduction and adoption of the recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Travel?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mr. Dean?
Aye.
Ms. Christie?
Aye.
Mr. Putney?
Aye.
And Ms. Gresham?
Aye. Good work. Glad to get that finished and off to council, committee.
Trina, you'll transmit that from the board to the governing body? I mean, as a result of the board's action just now, will you send it over, or do you want me to send it? Doesn't matter to me.
What did you send me? What I'm sending? There's so many ordinances bouncing
The
around.
big memo.
Okay.
Which is not.
The one without the red lines.
Okay, that's fine.
That's what the board just approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will remember the exclude rather than the include.
Include, right.
Oh, you're gonna pick nits now.
No, it's in the final. That's what I said.
In the
That's
final.
what I hate about red lines. I caught it, but you wouldn't know that.
We don't have to read the whole thing, because we'll just try.
So the black copy is the final.
Right.
That's the final with all the
And it's
names
correct.
accepted.
And it is
Correct
correct.
final.
Board have any comments tonight?
We do have one more.
We do, there's,
It's a different ordinance.
Oh,
It's very short.
oh, okay.
It is in your list of ordinances. And I'm told by Paul that it basically just cleans up your ordinance to take out an unnecessary notice requirement for ordinance change. And I agree that it's.
Oh, I have it here.
The ordinance section required that the township send notice to every property owner in the district if you were changing your lot coverage or setbacks or density, anything like that. It's above and beyond anything that was required in this land use. Frankly, if you make a change to the ordinance, it costs hundreds if not thousands of dollars to the township.
Mhm. So we're going to send this to everybody in the R10 zone? Is that the idea?
Well, that's what I
Theoretically, you might
said.
have to if you did that.
Are we going to change the ordinance? Not, so
This ordinance changes it so that notice is not required.
Oh, okay.
And
All
can you
right.
tell us the history of why it was that way? Were you around at that
I
time?
was around when it was done. There was a thought at one time, we said, you know what, we should, anytime we change anything in zone, we should tell everyone. And I think part of the impetus behind that was, things were, I think it set on the R10 zone when the setbacks went from 100 feet to 200 feet. They said, you know what, we should let everybody know that the setbacks are getting larger.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the concern.
Mhm.
I think generally, as you see with the proposed ordinance changes now, we've been getting tighter.
No.
We're getting,
More
I hate to
realistic.
say more relaxed, but
Right.
we're getting more
Right.
realistic maybe.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Hey, watch
the
that.
body basically, as I understand it, does not want to, you know, create that additional burden on the county. And Larry, I know this came from you guys.
right, the, and it came in, frankly, I'm not sure if it was Tom, Frank, or Paul who raised the issue that with the changes that the subcommittee had proposed, and we approved last time and approved again tonight, that the changes with the existing notice requirements would essentially require notice not just to everyone in the R10, but to every zone that's affected by the changes, which is not.
Virtually every zone in town.
Yeah,
Except
so-
Uh-huh.
for the hills.
Except for the hills. Every
Yeah,
other
right.
zone is changed. That would require specific notice, and the notice provision that was included in that old ordinance, I believe, was a mailing. And I think that was, I forget what year, I forget when that was required. But frankly, that.
It was 3 cents.
Yeah. It may not have been 3 cents, but it
Originally conceived in.
it was probably before we have social media and we have other modes of communicating these changes.
Right, so do you think we should put something on the website, maybe? Instead of mailing it, you know, have a section, front page of the website?
We actually talked about that at the Township Committee.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do, if you're gonna.
Well, you had your
Yes.
hearings. You've had two now, 2 hearings?
No, just.
Just one?
Just one.
So you'll have a
So
second.
it was introduced and sent back here for review and comment, and then go back to the Township Committee.
So have another hearing.
Right, and more than likely, if there is concurrence to move forward with it, we would, from the Township Committee, from a timing perspective, we would probably change the ordinance first,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back to the
Hearing.
variances, oh, I'm sorry, the bulk changes that we just
Hearing.
recommended.
Okay.
Now, changing his own districts still requires.
Let me just help everybody. Every ordinance gets a notice in the newspaper that
Right.
the ordinance is being considered for adoption.
Mhm.
And hearing is being held. Sometimes that's a summary notice, by title and a summary, sometimes it's shorter, it's the whole. You probably see some of that, why is this in the paper? And that's really more than the state legislature does. What the statute then says is to change the classification of a zone. And if it's not in conjunction with a re-examination report, then there's an individualized mail notice. This just went further than the statute requires. And it becomes cumbersome. Because frankly, if you make a mistake in a notice like that, like not send it to the 110th person on the list of 110 people, and you could have a jurisdictional problem about that. So the change of this will actually make things cheaper and easier and not so bad. And because we now have a system of pretty much internet access to the website to all introduced and adopted ordinances, proposed ordinances, it's so much better than anything used to be. Someday they'll say that's enough notice, but they haven't gotten around to
Yeah.
getting rid of the paper notice, probably because newspapers like to get the money.
The newspapers fought that a few years ago, you may recall.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend this to you because it actually makes it more accurate and more similar to the current statute.
So we're going to make a recommendation to the committee for this?
If you would, it would be a motion to recommend that ordinance number.
But I'm sorry, I'm not done. Just
Oh,
getting
I'm
back,
sorry.
you said the township committee did consider, tell me about the conversation, putting it on the website or something?
And we considered whether there should be a special notice about, frankly, I think we were talking about these changes.
Yeah, what, it was just a discussion?
There's been nothing, we haven't had the public hearing yet.
Right. We talked about putting changes on the website? Or?
Yes,
And so, are you going to do it, or?
we're waiting, we're waiting on feedback from here. It would be premature to
And then-
talk about something that may not get a recommendation.
Much. No, it would be a good idea, that's all. Be a great idea.
This is the final version that you were waiting for to do that.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Right, I mean, we're affecting changes that, you know, as we discussed, affect every zone other than hills.
Yeah.
So there could be a whole lot of people in favor of it, and there could be a whole lot of people opposed to it.
I think it's good to get it out there.
Can I ask on this ordinance, where does it address this stuff about sending out a mailing?
Well, you have to read section 13-1103,
Which is being eliminated.
which is basically being eliminated.
Okay, so that's where it goes away. I see.
200 or 300 words long.
Oh, I
It's
see.
a fairly long section.
So it's in there and it's going away. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And it's the only part of that we want to keep, I guess. What's here?
Well, instead of having, this section was only about notice for ordinance change.
Yeah.
So the whole section is basically being eliminated by calling it just a reserved line in the ordinance.
Oh, I see.
The section becomes blank.
Gotcha. For some possible future use.
Yes.
It's also good to know that there's been case law after 2005, I think, that basically said municipalities can't require more notice than is required by statute. So it's, not that I'm worried about that case law, but there's some sense to that you should basically do what in your ordinance is what the statute's requiring, not more.
This is in essence returning our notice requirements to conformance with the MLUL.
That's correct. An ordinance statute about, ordinances about changes to zoning, there's a separate one, not in the MLUL, but it's about MLUL statutes.
Okay. Any more discussion?
So if you would entertain it, I'd be a motion to,
You-
on this ordinance 2016 -19, not inconsistent with the master plan, and to recommend it to the township committee for introduction and adoption.
Do I-
Second.
Second.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Streckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Nay.
Mr. Deep?
Aye.
Ms. Christie?
Aye.
Mr. Mr. Zutnik?
Aye.
And Ms. Bradshaw?
Okay. Does the board have any other comments tonight?
I asked,
Sure.
I earlier today corresponded with Trina and Paul and Tom, asking whether at next week's meeting we could add an agenda item regarding the master plan reexamination. Some of the recommendations that the board likely will pursue in the upcoming year may change classifications or other types of factor affecting certain zones in a way where we might, but the biggest reason to think about a reexamination is because the governing body has talked about how changing conditions in the corridor have them talking with certain property owners and dealing with certain issues in a way where our policies should try to be forward-thinking about that. So I'm going to share what I sent to the governing body at the beginning of this year about the thing that, at the end of this year, I mean, for next year's work, the kind of issues that we should expect to be talking about. And what I'd like to do next week, Tom will step on my foot if I don't shut up soon enough, is just be able to open that discussion in a way where I get a sense from you about how rapidly we pursue that and come through that process and out the other end. We have a statutory requirement updated by June of 2018, else the presumption of, I don't know what to say,
Guilt?
validity to our ordinances is abundantly lost from you, and so you don't want to do that. And it's easy to say, well, that's almost 2 years off. There's many of the things that to look at are kinds of issues that a re-exam is designed to help you look at. And the reason I say that is because when you talk about an issue like we've done with some of these things, and they're pretty straightforward, so we were able to have a very meaningful conversation without a lot of data. We didn't need a lot of information to make decisions about this stuff. Some of these other things we're going to talk about, conditions of the corridor in terms of vacancies and other issues, there is data about, and we should have a really clear understanding of what that is when we start to talk about whether, if and whether any policies are implicated that might have to change or should change, or if we want to look differently at things than we have in the past. It's one of those times where the longest time in Bedminster, doing things the same way we always had has been a winning formula. And I think the trickiest part of what we have to do now is make sure that that winning formula stuff that shouldn't change doesn't change, but that where really important change is necessary, we don't rely on the fact that we never change here to keep us from keeping up with the times in certain ways. So it's not for me to tell you what that means. It's really more for you all to talk about what that means. Talk with the governing body enough so that you don't plan for something that they would never zone for, but you have members here to be part of that conversation. So I'm figuring at the most, I would ask you to spend half an hour talking about that at our meeting next week.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Frank, will you be giving us a list of items that need to be discussed?
I'm going to send
Are you prepared to give us that list tonight, since we don't have a lot of other information on this meeting?
I can email
It's up
that.
to you. I'm just saying because we don't have a lot of other agenda items tonight.
No, well, what I can tell you is that
Unless everyone-
I have an email I sent to Tom last week where I excerpted the part of my response to the town sends out a request for qualifications. They have us all write something about what we should work for you and what we would do. So the portion of it that says other factors that may reasonably impact the township, I respond to and say the things that I think you should do. And just briefly, because you're asking, but not because I want to drag this out.
Right.
He's got sharp, no, he doesn't have the sharp heels on.
Sharp toes.
The re-examination, I pretty much have already said. I think it's a good time to begin the process, regardless of whether you want to finish in 6 months or a year and a half. The issues regarding the corridor, largely related to the office market, looked really different before the building right up the street filled up instead of being completely empty. So, you know, the changing circumstances, how it said, of my demise or somewhat I forget exactly what the quote is. But the truth is, we would be one of those places that was a very minor readjustment in the way office space can continue to be productively tenanted. Some other places are finding that, like the Sanofi site, it's going to go away wholesale and something else is going to come back. I see a lot of things here that would go away wholesale, but I do see that as AT&T loses its interest in that campus at all, we've gone through the process in the last couple of years of Merrill Lynch, which is had a very large campus in Hopewell Township just off 95. It was built as a single-user campus, beautiful structured parking, these wonderful pods. It looks like a town center kind of place, 90-foot tall buildings that are elegant. They're $450 a square foot, sold for $85 a square foot to just separate owners, because the party was arranged in a way where if DEFCON 7 ever came, you could sell it off according to a predetermined subdivision plan, which makes sense, but so now we have 7 separate owners of a property that has a common heating plant. They're all things that were built for single users that make it very tough to adapt. So what we want to do is get a real understanding of our inventory on the ground. If everything's working fine and there's nothing we should do to tweak it, we're not here to make changes that aren't needed, but we're here to question where changes might be needed and then to make recommendations to the governing body. And again, if we go half-cocked with an idea that we're going to replan the town and they don't see it that way, that's a fool's errand. So we really need a really good conversation. And I think we have it going. I don't mean that we don't have that, but
It's like a re-examination. Imagine you have a master plan,
Yeah.
and every 10 years at a minimum, you must re-examine that master plan. You can do it more often than every 10 years. You can do it, you should do it every 10 years in order to keep the presumption of validity. It's a way to ask questions. Doesn't mean you end up concluding anything. Doesn't even mean that you make specific recommendations. But the re-examination is to ask those questions.
Yeah.
So the information you'll be providing us by email will be relevant to the discussion that we'll have next week?
it will essentially be the subject areas with 4.5 pages of explanation of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That'll open the discussion. And I think
Okay.
it'll be useful. And
I am going to miss the meeting, but I'm looking forward to seeing
I
it.
will send that tonight, so everybody has it plenty of time.
And there's no conclusion next week. It's not-
It's the opening of that
It's gonna be an ongoing
conversation.
con-
The other items, just to be very brief and clear on it, COA, we know we're still dealing with that. That's
Yeah.
an ongoing thing that we won't have to talk about much next week. House preservation is on for next week, and when we're done next week, we may be done with that for a while. But the last item, and one that I think merits a serious conversation, is I put it under the heading of village vitality. But what is that as these, the plan referred to them as central places, which is kind of an off-putting term, but these villages, hamlets, towns that have identities that are real places, as they undergo the transformation like Bedminster and Pluckerman have from their historic occupancies, largely residential, relatively small scale on the non-residential side, to what they've become, all of the residential vitality, the boots on the street, the feeling of, someone said to me, the best thing about having people live upstairs, besides that they come down and shop, is you drive down the street at night and it's not a dead place. You see life, you see people around and stuff. So my questions for you are, we've got the grid, so to speak, that the playing field on which this stuff is done. We've at the crossroads of the revolution, looking for a place to try to land some of that tourist interest. And we've got, with the old school and I get the current name of the Set Art Association, but contemporary
For contemporary art.
Thank you. But I mean, you've got so much stuff going right already. You have things going on here that other towns wish they could get started, but we don't have them working some kind of synchronicity where at the end of the day, they add up to more than, they don't even add up to the sum of the parts.
Right.
That's the sad part. And it's such a walkable place. So I won't go on now. We'll talk a little bit next week about all that.
Good, okay. We'll
Thank
look
you.
forward to that.
Right.
One of the things I wanted to bring up is that I understand the Township Committee is having their reorg on Friday the 6th. Is that
Yes.
finalized? Yes?
I don't know that it's been finalized. I believe that's the date that we were looking at the last meeting, Friday the 6th at the,
Well, my question is that we have a meeting the night before, and
Oh, then we
Oh.
don't meet usually.
usually you have your,
Postpone it.
We then, the Open Public Meetings Act is to meet the first, within 7 days of the first organization of the Township Committee, so we probably have to cancel if theirs is after ours.
that's what I'm worried about.
what was scheduled for that meeting?
It was just a reorganization meeting, but we're likely to have another relatively small application land in the next week or so that I was hoping to get on then before we get into the Bedminster 2 and Lamington LLC applications, which will be ping-ponging back and forth, I'm afraid, for
We could,
alternating meetings.
we could make our first meeting, we call it the,
Well, Bed 2 is already on for the 12th.
For the 12th, right.
okay, that could be our first meeting, and then we could have a special, but actually we could make it a regular by just having it in the reorganization meeting for the 19th, if we want to, if we think.
That's the Board of Health.
Board of Health.
organization.
Oh, okay. So don't do that. Do we need another meeting in January?
Well, I mean, this application hasn't been submitted
Yeah.
yet. I was just, if
Tough luck.
if that application came in and it was in good shape, I would have tried to squeeze it in on the reorganization meeting on the 5th if we had that meeting,
Yeah.
just because.
Just about for this, just about. There's that. Steve was going to have one additional conversation, but it didn't sound like it was going to be the 6th.
A Friday evening?
It's
That's a Friday.
Mhm. Yeah.
And where is it?
At the, right now, Trump National.
So the president-elect might join.
Does that ever become a conflict?
You may join us.
I don't think anyone can predict what the president-elect is going to do or is not going to do. There's certainly that possibility.
Well, we will also,
He should be invited, right?
of course.
I am sure an invitation will be.
I hear he gets here every now
He finds his way.
He knows how to get there.
Yeah.
He knows how to get there.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is I don't remember if we had done any recognition for Claire Martin. Certainly, do you remember if we did anything? I don't think we did.
I don't believe we did.
I don't believe we did either. And certainly he had,
He kind of slipped out the side door.
He did.
And when I talked to him on his way into his truck that night when he was leaving for the last time, he was like, on purpose. So
I'm out of here.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what you're suggesting. I think it's a great idea.
well, I think we should. I mean, he served for the Landuse Board and for I don't know how many years on the Board of Adjustment. I mean, I was on 6 years, so it was way beyond that. So he certainly should have recognition. If we haven't done it, we could add it to the reorg meeting, because although Lance, I understand, has given his formal resignation, so he will also be recognized for the work he did. If you would take that back to the committee,
I'll take that back to the mayor tonight.
if you would.
I will.
So that leaves us with missing positions. So I leave with Doug moving up to committee, Lance leaving, and I'm not sure what Dorn is planning to do, but I know he's at the end of his term as well. So
Steve is contemplating.
I'm sure he's working on it. I know that's his job, and I'm sure he's working on it, but that needs to be part of our reorg as well. So, and we'll need that for going forward. So, I have nothing else in that regard.
I think I'm fine.
You want to go through our applications?
Sure, you want to talk about the pending application?
Yep.
Under 12, New York FMLA is still incomplete. Bed 2 funding is on for January 12th. Perone is incomplete. Lanes Road, we determined to be complete tonight, and be on the first meeting.
Okay. All right, I guess that's it. If anybody has anything else? I think we're finished. Motion to close.
What does Verizon Wireless want to do?
That is a transmission node on top of an existing utility pole.
Just one?
It's an antenna out there, it's in a canister, and there's multiple antennas pointing different directions.
Oh, it's like a regional thing.
It's a micro cell site.
Oh, okay. Oh, so there may be more than one. It's a micro.
Well, it's my understanding is to supplement the addition, supplement bandwidth. Now the biggest problem is cell phones coverage bandwidth problem.
So you can see a movie.
While you're driving down the
Driving
road,
down the road, 287.
You can watch a movie.
60 miles an hour.
It's not just you, it's everyone else driving can also see a movie.
Keep the kids amused in the back seat.
So I guess our final conclusion is we'll decide next week what we're doing for our first meeting in January. We'll have to,
Well, if it's gonna be the 12th, it'll be relooked and.
right, I mean, it's just they make final, I guess it,
And that should be certainly.
right, so by
on
next
Monday.
week, we'll know for sure.
Yes.
So we'll decide that then. Okay. That's the end. We have motion to close?
So moved.
Okay.